Hello, hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Gunn Show podcast. You know, that show that has zero script, has a lot of fun, and we're doing everything we can to bring manufacturing and engineering to light. We want to do something that allows the awareness for people out there to go, man, I am so proud of that person that built that airplane, not just the ones that fly it, although we should be proud of them too. I take a lot of flights, and I'm definitely grateful when they do a good job. However, even if they did a good job and somebody built it wrong, we'd all be in trouble. So thank you to the engineers out there as well. That is the quick summary of the Gunn Show. You know, we're bringing artificial intelligence to life. We're bringing the faces and the sounds and the noises of the people who kind of create the world around us, other than the air and the people, right? So the engineering, manufacturing world is a unique and fun place that we want to do everything we can to create that awareness. So today, I have the great pleasure to be with my friend Meaghan Ziemba. And Meaghan is the host of Mavens of Manufacturing, which I think is pretty cool. We're going to learn a little bit more about that today. And she has a master's degree in English, professional, and technical writing. This is the Gunn Show. So, Meaghan, thank you so much for being a part of the Gunn Show.
Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Oh, always a pleasure, Meaghan. Thank you so much. So let's start with who you are, where you came from, how you got into the field that you're in now, and we're going to just all learn about how amazing you are.
Yeah, so I'm Meaghan Ziemba, and I'm actually from the Midwest. I was born in New York, and my dad got a job at a company called Fairbanks Moores, which makes really large submarine engines. So we ended up moving to Wisconsin when I was like 3 years old, and I've been in the Midwest ever since. I live right now in Illinois, so go Chicago Cubs. Love the Cubs, love the Blackhawks. And I kind of fell into manufacturing by accident. I started my college career out at the University of Minnesota, and almost failed out twice. I was on academic probation because I really didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And then at 19, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter and realized that I was going to be a single mom. And so I was like, okay, I have to really get my stuff together and figure out what I want to do for the rest of my life so that I can be a great role model for her and not have her fall down the same pathway that I was going. And moved back to Wisconsin and enrolled at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, and decided that I was really good at writing and telling stories. But creative writing doesn't really make a ton of money unless you're really good at it. And I knew that I didn't have the skill set to do like a Harry Potter book or Lord of the Rings book. So met one of the professors who was teaching graphic design and professional and technical writing, and was kind of interested in what that theory was all about and how you can create materials that are really technical, but have them be able to instruct someone else what to do simply by just providing them a step-by-step instruction. And I thought it was really interesting because one of our exercises was, okay, tell me how to make a peanut butter sandwich. And we had to follow the steps verbatim. And sometimes the peanut butter wasn't on the sandwich, it was on the table. Sometimes the peanut butter didn't even get open. Like, it was just really interesting how written language gets translated in different ways by different people. So got my bachelor's and master's in professional and technical writing, and ended up at a publication company in Madison, Wisconsin for engineering and design. They asked me right away what my engineering experience was. And I was like, I'm not an engineer, I'm a writer. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, oh, that's fine. And I was like, this is a really weird interview. I don't even know if I'm in the right spot. But they ended up having me edit a bunch of product releases and press releases the first 6 months that I was there. And then they were like, okay, we think you can do interviews now and start creating your own stories. And it just opened up this whole new world to me about manufacturing. Like, I knew what manufacturing existed, but I never had those, heart-to-heart conversations with my dad about what he really did. And so I just learned about, how products are designed from concept to finish. And I got to hear and see the passion on the engineers and the manufacturers' faces about what they were making and how it produced value to their customers. And I got hooked right away. And one of the things that I learned throughout that journey is that engineers are really terrible at communicating what they're doing. They're literally either too direct, where it's all this technical information that no one really understands, or they're really kind of antisocial and they don't understand why anyone would care what they're doing. So it was a lot of fun for me because I did deal with a lot of difficult personalities, but to be able to crack that hard shell and see their softer sides and understand where their passion came from, I just fell in love with writing for manufacturing. So I was there for about like 7 years. And then I was like, I wonder if I can try a different sector or industry. So I went into higher education. Biggest mistake of my life. It was so boring. It was not for me. It wasn't as fast paced and it was so linear. So I ended up leaving that opportunity and then decided to do more marketing things for manufacturers. So I worked with a bearing company that produced small bearings and a lot of assemblies for mechatronics. And then I got involved with additive manufacturing. And then from there, I became part of a team that turned into a marketing agency. And then now I'm at a company called PhotoFab in Chicago, Illinois, and they're a photochemical etching company. And they make a lot of small parts for aerospace, telecommunications, medical, and defense. And how they create these parts is through acid etching. And it's a really just cool fabrication process because it involves chemicals and sheets of metal, and that's it. And the tolerances are really high tolerances, really high quality materials. And all of these small components go into a lot of things that we know today, like, some of the spaceships that are going to Mars, the rover that's up there, the helicopter, like we create some of those parts that help build those bigger parts. But one of the things that is missing was I wasn't allowed to do different interviews and talk to different people. And I was really missing that storytelling aspect. Like I tell a PhotoFab story and I love it, but I love just learning from a variety of different people. And during COVID, I had some time on my hands working remotely, and with my daughter graduating next year and hearing some of the conversations that she's having with her friends, nothing about manufacturing or engineering was coming up. And I was kind of wondering why. And with some of the groups that I've been involved with, I'm involved with the Women in Manufacturing. And then there's another local group called Women of Today's Manufacturing. The conversation of, manufacturers are having a really hard time finding skilled talent and retaining skilled talent. And then there's also that issue where women aren't coming up a lot in the industry right now. I think we're only representing 30%, according to Deloitte's study. And I've always was wondering why. So I decided at the start of COVID, back in December, maybe I should do this Mavens of Manufacturing. And I was sitting down with one of my friends and I was telling him about it. And he was like, that's a really cool idea. You should just do it. Why aren't you doing it now? And I'm like, because I'm not prepared for it. I don't have a website. I don't know anything about video. I don't know even how to start a podcast. And he just kind of told me that I was being ridiculous. And he's like, all these things are simple. You're smart enough that you can learn them right away. Don't worry about the website right now. Just make an announcement, see what kind of feedback you get. So I made an announcement, and I think I had 20 people contact me right away and said, hey, you should talk to this girl, or hey, I have a story to tell. So I started Mavens of Manufacturing and been doing it every Friday unless it's on a holiday weekend, and just meeting a lot of interesting women in the industry and hearing their stories, and really just trying to show the fun side of manufacturing specifically to women, and trying to recruit younger generations to the sector and help close not just the skills gap, but the gender gap that's going on as well too. Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions, especially for women who want to be involved. They think it's this dark, dirty, dull, dangerous place, or they think there's no opportunities for them to move up the ladder, or there isn't opportunities if they're moms to do both. And I'm kind of proof that all of that happens. And the stories that I'm sharing, the women that I'm talking to, they're showing that, yeah, you can be a mom. You can have a ton of things on your plate. You can move up the ladder. You can start out as a receptionist and then work your way up and actually own a manufacturing company. And you can do great things and provide value. So it's been going well, and I'm booked out all the way up until August right now. And I'm still booking shows and really excited, and making plans to do bigger things with it, and learning how to do podcasts and recording and all that other stuff, and improving my skill set. So it's been fun.
That is all incredible. And so many places I wanted to interrupt and be like, oh yeah, me too. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's fantastic. But you can't slow someone down or on a roll like you just did. There's no way. But if you don't mind, I'd like to start back toward the beginning of your story. We'll move back through this again.
Yeah, sure.
Where I can empathize with you, with that grade stuff in college. I got kicked out of a couple of them for that same reason. I couldn't sit in the classroom. You mentioned having a child at a young age. I did too. I think that child saved my life and pushed me in the right direction. Do you feel the same?
Oh, absolutely. I was in a dark place for a long time. I was one of those kids that didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I think some of the same kids are going through the stuff today too, because I recently just had a conversation with my daughter. She and her friends were all talking about what college they were going to, what four-year college. And I wasn't ready for that. And that was all that my mom knew. Like, she was like, no, I have to push my kids to do university education. They have to go through this four-year program. And I just don't think that's the best route for everyone. And I continually tell my daughter, like, if you're not ready to go to school, don't. Travel. You're young. You're going to be 18 by the time you graduate. Get a couple part-time jobs, and travel. Get outside of the country, learn about different people, learn about different cultures, ethnicities. Learn as much as you possibly can to see what your passion is and where you fit within the rest of the world. Because I feel like at that time, I kind of got forced into a decision that I wasn't ready to make. And so I ended up making stupid decision after stupid decision after stupid decision. So then when I got pregnant with my daughter, I was like, crap, I'm an adult. I gotta work this. I gotta work this out. I gotta be a better human being. So she definitely saved my life, and she's such a great human being, and I'm so proud of her. And I'm not ready for her to be a senior and ready to go out in the real world, but I'm really proud of her for all that she does.
Oh, you're my hero with the advice you gave as well. That was that was some really good advice, in my opinion, coming from a very similar, perspective as you. Something else that I really value about you is the voice that you have for women in manufacturing, and that you're willing to share that voice with anyone who's interested in listening, including, people like myself. When I first mentioned, hey, I want to do this podcast with moms for manufacturing, you were the first person to reach out. So let's talk a little bit about what it was like as you started to slide into manufacturing as a woman, either the simplicity or the acceptance or the difficulty and the judgment, whatever perspective you had from it, and what it's been like working in a mostly male dominated industry, and perhaps, a little bit of advice for those women out there who could do really well here, but haven't really thought about it too much.
It's definitely been a roller coaster. When I first started out at the trade publication that I worked for, one of the things that we did on a consistent basis was go to different trade shows throughout different areas in the United States. And then we also went to Electronica in Munich, Germany, which was a blast. It was the first time I've ever been out of the country. But I just remember verbatim before walking into that first trade show, my boss was like, okay, I'm just going to warn you. And I'm like, huh? And he's like, you're going to get some looks, you're going to get stared at, and you might even get some negative comments. Just please remember to keep your professionalism. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I was just like, where are we going? Like, are we going into a fight club match that I didn't know about? Like, what's going on? So immediately as we go in there, the first gentleman that we talked about was looking at everything but my face. And I was like, oh, this is what he's talking about. And then I got a comment like, oh, are you here as a booth bunny? Like, what are you doing here? Are you here to work a booth? And I got past that. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. I was completely blown away. And I'm usually generally a quick-witted person and I can shoot stuff back, but I was just like, nope, we're not going to do that here, because I didn't want to step out of bounds and get fired the next day. Like, I liked my job and I wanted to keep it. So instead I wrote an article. It was called "I'm Woman, Why Should I Roar?" And I was just trying to play off that old saying, hey, I'm a woman, hear me roar kind of thing, where I was like, okay, we're getting close to the 2000s. Why do I need to roar or like express my feminism? Why can't I just be a regular person and be here on the same professional level as you? Why is this still an issue? And some of the comments that I got back from that article really blew me away. Some were really supportive. Some men were just like, you're not going to look gorgeous all the time. You should just appreciate the fact that you're beautiful now and that your looks aren't going to last. And you should take this as a compliment. And I was just like, that's okay. This is cool. Like, I'm really starting to see what my boss was saying. So I kind of just put on a thicker skin and learned how to joke back, and learned professional ways of saying, hey, that's a boundary, don't cross it. And it really helped improve my skills of patience and understanding, which I'm grateful for. There were a couple instances though, where I was just like, enough is enough. Like, you're being a jerk. You need to stop. Like, this is unprofessional. Just be a better person. And I remember too, I got pulled to a side by one of my editors, and they were like, we got a complaint. And I'm like, a complaint about what? And they started describing an instance that I was at for a trade show. I was there to get an interview. Yes, I knew that people were looking at me and making comments underneath their breath. I chose to ignore it because that was not what I was there for. I was there to talk to one specific gentleman, get a couple pictures, get a few interview questions done and over with, and then I was going to leave. And one of my coworkers said something about how I was oblivious to the comments or the looks or whatever. And I told my editor, I was like, what did you want me to do in that situation? Did you want me to throw a tantrum, say some snarky remarks? I'm like, I don't know how else to act, but as a professional woman in a work environment. I was like, I can put a paper bag over my head and wear a t-shirt and sweatpants next time if that's going to help. I'm like, but I feel like we're losing focus on why I was there. And I was like, I just think this is ridiculous. And come to find out, the reason why there was a complaint is because the coworker that I was with, she was used to always getting the attention. So she made it like this competitive environment. So she was trying to get me in trouble. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. Because they actually sent a picture of what I was wearing that day to our HR department. And I was like, I was wearing a 3-piece suit. How is this inappropriate? I don't get it. So from there too, like, I've worked in manufacturing companies where it's mostly been men in the leadership. And just some of the comments and things that I hear, it's, it's that typical quote unquote locker room talk, whatever. And some of that's just never going to change, which is unfortunate. But I think it's getting better. There are companies out there and there are people out there that really just want to make good products and help people out with whatever problems they're having. So yeah, it can be difficult and frustrating at sometimes. But for me, I've always tried to remain focused on the positive, because the only way we're going to move forward as a community, I think, is just remaining positive and doing better things, being a better person every single day. So I try to just ignore that noise. If it's just locker room talk, and just keep my professionalism. And if it gets to a point where it's unbearable, there's other opportunities out there that, are going to fit. I mean, manufacturing is always looking for skilled talent. That's one of the challenges that it's facing right now. So I know there's opportunities out there. So if an environment gets too toxic, there's an opportunity to find a better one, and just move forward. I think just maintaining, just focusing on the negative that's out there, it's not going to help any of us move forward. So you definitely need thick skin. I'm not saying for women to get rid of their emotional side, because I think we tend to be a little bit more emotional, but I think that's what makes us unique. And I think that's what makes us who we are. But there are women out there that aren't emotional, and there are women that have thicker skin than I do. But I think if you just focus on what the end goal is and how you're providing value to your audience, then that's all that matters. And just keep being who you are, keep a smile on your face, keep being positive, and just keep going. There's so many opportunities out there, and you meet so many fantastic people that are doing really cool things. Like we're talking about stuff that we watched in movies a long time ago, like Back to the Future with the hoverboards and stuff, and Star Wars with lightsabers. And we're getting close to all of that becoming a reality. And it's just awesome. And letting those people that are, insecure to the point where they need to try to make you feel less than what you are, it's not worth it. So my advice is just to keep going. And if one environment gets too toxic where you think you can't use your voice appropriately, there's so many more opportunities out there that's looking for skilled talent. Just go for it and just say bye, thank you very much, and then move on to the next opportunity.
The way you describe things, it's obvious that you're a writer as well, because the way you describe all of this story, I have, again, just so many thoughts flying through my head. My wheels are turning just constantly. You talked about lightsabers, which is the nerd in me as well. I was just over at a mega TMM, and they were showing me the measurements of light, and I'm like, "Hey guys, have you invented a lightsaber yet?" And they looked at me very seriously, as if that was already been done, or like in their garage, or it's really about to happen. So yes, cool stuff like that is happening all the time. But while you were telling your story, I try to place myself in your shoes, which it's somewhat difficult to do. So I just tried to reverse the roles in general and just say, okay, well, if I'm in a female dominated industry and, I'm going through and I'm being judged for certain things the whole time, and I'm told one day you're not going to be as attractive as you are now, take it as a compliment. And then the guy that I'm working with, the only other guy, in my surrounding circles trying to get me in trouble, I would have probably thrown a fit. I think you did well to convey a message that you wanted to convey there. But based on that whole story, because I know that if roles were reversed and I happen to be in a situation similar to that, I would probably do the same as you, in the sense of grow thick skin, figure out how to make it work until it becomes too toxic, in which case, find something else. But I think, and maybe this is rhetorical, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is that what is the first major hurdle to getting more women into manufacturing? Is it that type of story, or is it something else?
No, I think it depends on the individual. For me, I've heard a ton of different stories of why certain women don't want to enter the sector, or they do enter the sector and then they end up leaving. Some think that there's just no room for growth opportunities. Others are really struggling to try to find that family life balance, because they're moms and they have kids at home, and it is hard. Like I that's something that I'm still struggling with today, where I go to work and then I have to come home and pay attention to my kids and, be the mom. And with my husband working night shift, it makes it even harder because, sometimes he's off doing what he needs to do. And so I have to be up from like 3:30 in the morning sometimes all the way up to 10:30 at night, because that's just how the schedule works out. I think the misconceptions of, manufacturing being dirty, dark, and dull still exist in the minds of some people. So it's not as attractive. And I also think, like for me, I've never been really good at math. I hate numbers. I still use my fingers to add things up because it just doesn't click in my brain. And science was always something that was interesting to me, but I never excelled at like the formulations and things that we had to do in chemistry or whatever. It just never really excited me enough to like spend that much time trying to figure things out. And I think that's one of the things too, where people are like, oh, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science. So manufacturing is not the place for me. Where now there's opportunities to do like CNC programming for, machines. There's also robotics that are getting involved. But there's also a ton of design opportunities too. So if you're not a mathematician or a scientist, that's completely fine. There's a lot of opportunities for design work, and okay, what materials for this product are going to make it the most robust while also making it light, while also making it cost efficient? How do we, put that together in the most efficient way possible? And then, it's got to be put into an oven at like 350 degrees without getting destroyed or melted. Like it's certain problem solving skills like that. But there's also opportunities too within marketing. I know a young lady, her name is Crystal. She's amazing at what she does. She does animations. And what is the one thing that grabs customers' attention? Animations. Moving parts. So how do you get, a customer to see how the inside of whatever product you are works, plus the outside? How do you show them all that, all the inner components in a successful way? And what she's doing is she's creating that on a computer where you can zoom in and out. And this is something that, sales teams can use on their iPads and bring it to customers and be like, oh, you want to see everything on how this works? Here you go. And she did that all on her own on a computer. So, she is good at math, but she's better at design, and she's doing fantastic things with design. So there's different opportunities. I met a woman, she didn't think that she was part of manufacturing at all because she deals with textiles. So she deals with fabric. And I was like, that is manufacturing though. And she's like, no. She's like, we just do this, this, and this. And I'm like, no, that's manufacturing. You have to pick out which. So think of it this way. You're an astronaut, okay? You need some pretty durable clothing, right? Or you're a police officer, or you're a firefighter, or you're a nurse. That clothing came from a design conversation. What materials do we need to make this robust? If you're a nurse, you don't want some of the fluids that you're dealing with seeping through your clothes, because that's just a health hazard. And, if you're a firefighter, you don't want your clothes melting off of you, right? So they're coming up with new ways to like create lighter design clothes. And even with some of the women that are entering those industries, they don't want the clothes that men are wearing that are bulky and, not comfortable to wear. So then, okay, now we got to form fit this to fit a woman's body or fit a woman's anatomy. So there's so many different things that people just don't realize that deal with manufacturing. And I think that's part of the problem. We have to start showing all of these amazing things that manufacturing is doing to grab the attention, not just of women, but of younger generations, get them hooked and keep, their gears turning and showing them, hey, this is what's going on. I spoke to one woman, she's actually going to be on Maven's in a couple of weeks, and they make components that go into cameras. And one of her stories is, yeah, our components were in the camera that helped catch the Boston bombers, marathon bombers. And I'm like, that is fantastic. I would love to get involved with that. And it all starts with that story. And that's kind of where my role comes in as a writer. I help people share these stories. So I think it just depends on a person's situation and what their life experience is. I don't think it's mostly because they feel like it's a male-dominated industry, because there's some amazing women out there already who are in leadership positions. It definitely is a hurdle, but if you can just maintain your grit and just show up and use your voice, you can definitely get over that hurdle. So, I mean, some people, yeah, they don't want that negativity, so they'll probably never pursue it, and that's fine. It's not, I mean, everybody has their different flavors and different interests, so manufacturing is not going to be for everyone, but it's definitely a fun sector, and I think everyone should at least try it. And the negative things that are occurring, just it's not what makes up the sector, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I could listen to you.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just getting ready to say, I could listen to you talk for hours. I really could. It's just so informative. And I enjoy listening to the words that come out of your mouth and the stories that you share. So I imagine our listeners are doing the same and want less of me and more of you. I think so you went into a lot of stories about the industry itself. I like that you went into the fabrics and textiles. That's really cool. But you started it with one of the obstacles being that there's this thought process that there's no growth. That was how you started that part of the conversation. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the idea of engineering and manufacturing is a whole bunch of numbers with people and machines creating and whatever it might be. And most of the times it's unknown, and that's it, right? But that's not it. Some of the most amazing salespeople in our industry right now are women. As you mentioned, several designers and marketers, of course, but also some of the best programmers and machinists that I know are women. So it's certainly not by any means, and this is definitely rhetorical, but by any means is it a lack of brain power. We know that. Women, all the women in my life are far smarter than I am, but I agree with you that there is a perspective of that limitation, and perhaps that limitation isn't as exposed, or maybe the marketing and other aspects of the work world showcase where there might be more opportunity, and what we do in our industry, we don't showcase it as well. But I honestly just see like a tree growing branches everywhere of all the opportunity that can happen within what we do.
And there's studies out there that still show the discrepancies between men and women's pay. There's studies that still show that discrepancy, but that's one of the things that I least like to talk about is salary ranges. It's like one of the very first questions an employer will ask you, what's your range? Well, no, this is your position that you're hiring me for. What is your range? Like, let's talk about this. Like, you should already have an idea of what you want in your work environment. And, I saw this interesting post on LinkedIn. This gentleman said the skills gap is a lie. I was like, okay, you caught my attention. And he was basically saying that what the issue is that companies aren't willing to invest in the good talent that does exist out there. And I was like, that's an interesting point. And he's like, if I offer a number, but they come at me with a different number, because they know their skill set and they're talented and they're confident in it. Okay, yeah, I'm going to invest. Will I lose sometimes? Sure. He's like, but so far I haven't lost. And he said he had to invest some money, and he lost some of his investment, but because of their skill set and their confidence level, they were producing more than someone that didn't like their job. So he was getting a huge ROI on the other end of things because of the skilled talent that he invested in. It might have been a higher wage that he was, maybe anticipating, but because it was the right talent and the right fit, and he was able to negotiate with them and work with them, it all worked out in the end for everyone to win-win. And I think that's one of the things that people focus on where they shouldn't focus on. Like, if someone comes with a number and then you want to refute that to me is like, well, you're not really ready then to invest in my skill set, So why am I going to want to work with you? Because I had that happen to me where a gentleman was like, well, what's your range? And I'm like, well, what are you looking for? Like, what skill set are you looking for? Because I don't know what your position is. Because they kind of approached me to recruit me, but they didn't know what they wanted to recruit me for. So then it was up to me to like provide this information. And I'm like, oh, that's not what I want to do. Like, I want to know what I'm providing a range for. And if I don't know, then I'm not going to give you a range. Like, that should be something you already know. So I think companies need to change. And I'm not saying all companies, because there are companies that are really changing their work culture to be all inclusive, where everyone's involved in decision makings. But I think there's still some companies out there that need to work on what type of work environment they're providing their employees. Because if you don't have happy employees, you're not going to have a happy work environment, and production's just not going to be where you want it. And you're going to lose out somewhere. So I don't know. It just seems that's like common sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah, that part is common sense. Now, the title of the article I disagree with, because I believe there is a massive skills gap that needs to be solved. However, the point of the article of what you described is absolutely true, which is, pay the people what they deserve. And if we can create a better work environment, then everyone's going to be happy. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. that is common sense. I'm with you all the way. It's the reason why I think for the most part, places like Disney thrive. They most of their people seem to be happy.
Yeah.
I know we're talking a lot, but gosh, I love talking to you, Meaghan. But before we get off, I want to just dive right into Mavens of Manufacturing. I know that's something you're passionate about. I know it's something we should focus on for a few minutes and just, share with this global audience a bit more about what that is and the passion behind it. And if you want some people to get involved with you, maybe give that a shout out as well.
Yeah, so Mavens of Manufacturing is this idea that I had back in December, like I said, and I really just wanted to focus on all of the amazing women that are in the sector. And I really wanted to help share their stories, because I think part of the issue of attracting younger generations and retaining their interest in the sector is the lack of storytelling. Okay, so we have these small components. Why should I care? Well, they went into the camera of the Boston, that caught the Boston bombers. That's interesting. Okay, so then we have this medical device. Why should I care? Well, it's actually going to be something that we can implant, and it will track someone's health. It will make insulin cheaper or something like that. Like, there's always an end goal for these products, and I don't think those stories are shared enough. And I think even less so when it comes to women's success stories in manufacturing. And this, I'm not trying to take a low blow towards men in the sector, because there's a lot of great minds out there and I appreciate it. But I was just looking at my LinkedIn feed the other day, and there's all these amazing talks coming up, amazing conversations, amazing panelist discussions. There's no women on any of them. I think I saw maybe one out of the 25 that I looked up that had one woman on the panel, and the rest were men. And I'm like, there's got to be more women involved in this area. of manufacturing? Why are they not being represented? And I just think there's so many interesting stories with women, and they're just not getting shared. So I wanted to help with that part of it. And just being a mom as well, too. I have 2 boys that are 2 and 3, and they're curious about everything right now. And I think at a certain age, that curiosity kind of steers off because we're trying to raise these adults, these young adults, to be, standard citizens and, do these things. And I think that kind of takes away from what they really want to do in life. So I want to just maintain that curiosity throughout and have them still ask questions and pursue things that excite them, even when they get into high school. Because in high school, it gets pretty serious sometimes. You have a counselor and they're like, okay, what are your skill sets? What are you excelling at? How good are your test grades? Like stupid stuff like that I think shouldn't matter. And that's where they're gearing their career pathways. And I don't think that's the right approach. So I really want to get involved with organizations like the FMA and the TMA, WIM, and really figure out a way that we can get curriculum, not just at the high school level, but one woman that I talked to, her goal is K through 12. No, let's start at kindergarten and work our way up. And I think that's a fabulous idea, because if we can maintain that curiosity and let kids know that it's okay to break things in the name of discovery or mess things up in the name of discovery, we can get some really cool inventors and engineers and manufacturers. And they're going to know that it's okay, that some mistakes lead to great successes and great inventions that really help all of us out. So that's another thing. I just really want to get kids excited and provide a representation of somebody that might look like them. And it's been proven, if you're in a group and you don't see anyone that's similar to you or looks like you, you're going to feel a little awkward at first, right? And if you're one of those introverted type people, you might even leave that group to make yourself feel comfortable. So I just want to be able to show, hey, there are people that look like you in this sector, and they're probably as nerdy or goofy as you are, or have some weird quirks that are similar to you, and just show that transparency and that authenticity and attract people that way. So it's really just a fun conversation that I'm having with women at all different levels. I've talked to students. I talked to a 93-year-old the other day. Her name was Dolly Marshall. She's an original Rosie the Riveter. And I'm just trying to share that story of how women are doing amazing things in the sector. And I just want to keep doing it because it's so much fun. And there's so many interesting stories out there. And I think women provide that unique perspective because we think differently than men, that's been proven. There's books about it. And I think just bringing that together where we can all, contribute something to the table is really going to excel our innovation and help U.S. manufacturing be a force to reckon with from the rest of the world. And I think that's fun and exciting. And a little competition helps innovation as well, too. A little fun competition. So, but yeah, I am looking for any woman, any girl. I'm looking for students, C-level type positions, shop workers, marketers, any woman involved in the sector. If you have an interesting story to tell and you want to share it, please do, because I would more than love to have a conversation with you and share your story on mavens. And just being a maven is fun.
I love it. I love it, Meaghan. So we're going to close this thing out soon, but gosh, I want to keep talking to you and never stop being long-winded ever. Promise me you won't. I love it. There's so much good info coming out of you.
It's in my blood. I can't.
My question is, even though you have a 2 and a 3-year-old, when are you and I going to go on a national educational tour together? and start preaching this content to both the guys and the girls for engineering in the middle schools and high schools and go, guys, look at what we're doing.
Yes,
I think you and I would be a great team for that.
Absolutely. Let's start doing it. I would definitely start planning with it. I actually just had a conversation with my husband because I was like, okay, so this is what my plan is, and I really want to do this, and it might require me traveling a lot. He is like, well, we have a couple options. I can come with you sometimes with the kids, and while you go do your thing, we'll go do our thing. Or, we stay home and you take spurts off here and there. He's like, but definitely do it. He loves what I'm doing. He sees how it's exciting my daughter and also her friends. And they're proud of me. So they're on board. They support it 100%. My mom has no problem either watching my 2 toddlers. They're all on board with it because they know that the message is important. Even my dad, who we did not really have a great relationship back in the day, but now that he sees what I'm doing with manufacturing, he's like, you should do that. He's offering suggestions and ideas, and he wants to be a part of it. The man's been retired for like 5 years, and he's all like, I want to get back in, like, tag me in. So yeah, let's start planning it. I would love to work with you. It would be fun.
Yeah, if we could tour the country, middle schools, high schools, and focus on parents as well, and maybe have like a third sector at each location, and say, 30 minutes from you and 5 minutes from me, we could really convince these people. This is an industry to be. I would have so much fun. I think we should do that. So we're just going to manifest that into the world by talking about it a little bit more on the podcast. Meaghan, you are absolutely amazing and a joy and a pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for sharing your story on the Gunn Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is Meaghan. I can read through her specialties right now, which is going to be fun for me. Content marketing, inbound marketing, public relations, event coordination, community management, social media management, freelance, writing, brand storytelling, manufacturing, marketing for manufacturing. Yeah, the list goes on and on. Meaghan is an amazing human being. Tune into what she's doing. And Meaghan, thank you one more time for being a part of the MTD presented show called The Gunn Show.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it.